Nimanobishtam stapitam jena brutale swayam rupa kadamayam tadadita svapadam tikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sahagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Patan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabando Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourange Radhe Vrindavanishvare Rishibano Sutadevi Pananami Hari Priye Vanchakau Patarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gauda Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Can everybody hear me clearly? Yep, great. So at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is feeling weak. Now, Arjuna was not a weak person. He was a Kshatriya. Not only was he a Kshatriya, but he was Krishna's dear friend. And he was empowered by Krishna. He went through so many difficulties, adversities in his life. And when he was on the Battle of Kurukshetra, he was looking across the battlefield and he was seeing his family members, his teachers, his uncles, his grandfather. And he knew that he had to go into battle with them. And so he said to Krishna, I cannot fight. My mouth is drying up. I cannot hold my bow. What can I do? We know that Krishna created this situation for Arjuna for our benefits. So at that point, where Arjuna is feeling completely weak, and then of course he approaches Krishna for instruction. And I was going to read, to start today's class, Bhagavad Gita 2.7. Now, do you want me to display my screen, Amarish, or would somebody else like to display that for us?
I can make you co-host for the time being. No problem, Prabhuji. 1 second.
Okay, so shall I share my screen?
Yes, you can.
Or,
Here we go.
It says
Now
screen sharing is disabled.
Now you can do it. Try it now.
Okay. Here we go.
You are a co-host now.
Yeah.
Co-host withdrew permission. Hold on. What is this? Can you do it? Can you share the screen? No, okay, you can do it, I think. You can still do it.
Okay. Are we sharing now?
All good, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to go straight into the translation. So Arjuna says to Krishna, now I am confused about my duty. I have lost all composure because of weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me clearly what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. By nature's own way, the complete system of material activities is a source of perplexity for everyone. In every step there is perplexity, and therefore it behooves one to approach a bona fide spiritual master who can give one proper guidance for executing the purpose of life. All Vedic literatures advise us to approach a bona fide spiritual master to get free from the perplexities of life, which happen without our desire. They are like a forest fire that somehow blazes without being set by anyone. Similarly, the world situation is such that perplexities of life automatically appear without our wanting such confusion. No one wants fire, and yet it takes place and we become perplexed. The Vedic wisdom therefore advises that in order to solve the perplexities of life and to understand the science of the solution, one must approach a spiritual master who is in the disciplic succession. A person with a bona fide spiritual master is supposed to know everything. One should not therefore remain in material perplexities, but should approach a spiritual master. This is the purport of this verse. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for giving us that clarity. Now we're going to stop showing my screen for a while. Come back to you all. So Arjuna, in his point of weakness, is approaching Krishna as the most qualified spiritual master. And Krishna, of course, is going to instruct him in the science of Krishna consciousness, and that is the Bhagavad Gita. How many of you have found some strength in the words of the Bhagavad Gita? All of you, right? Who amongst us here has never been through a difficulty in life? No hands. Okay, that's good. I'm pleased to hear that. Because it is those difficulties in life that makes us call out to Krishna. It is those difficulties in life that makes us go deeper in our Krishna consciousness. Without those difficulties, we probably wouldn't be where we are right now. Of course, nobody wants difficulties. What we all want is a very nice, easy life where we can get up every morning, chant Hare Krishna, read the Bhagavatam, have a peaceful family with happy, peaceful children, happy, peaceful husband and wife, and go to work and come home and just be happy. And we want that every day. And it doesn't happen like that. In fact, very rarely it will happen that we feel completely peaceful in our external life. So in the Bhagavad Gita, we can read, there's a very famous verse, and we probably all know this one, Matra spārshastu kunteya sitashna sukadukada. I'm sure Jai Shri Krsnananda will remember that one from school. It's one that the children learn. So happiness and distress, it's coming and it's going without our control. We cannot avoid distress. We cannot avoid happiness. But we have to learn to live with it without being disturbed. So that is Krishna's instruction, without being disturbed. Now, today we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about our identity as devotees, what that means, our internal identity, our real identity, and our false identity. We're going to talk about how controlling our minds through Krishna consciousness can bring us closer to actually being able to think about Krishna and practice Krishna consciousness. And we're going to talk a little bit about how adversity also brings strength. Please, if you have any questions as we go through, please put up your hand or just call out and we'll answer questions as we go, or questions at the end also. Okay, so to become strong in Krishna consciousness, we all know that we have to practice the process. We can read and we can study the Bhagavad Gita every day, but if we do not practice, then we will not become strong. So we know that. To the extent that we're able to do this, to the extent that we're practicing Krishna consciousness nicely, as Ambarish told us in the beginning, you're chanting, you're happy. So to the extent that we're doing that, we will develop strength. And we will become steady. So Srila Prabhupada explains that from steadiness comes faith. And then from faith comes taste. And from taste, we get to love. And it's really simple. As Prabhupada says, simple for the simple. You wake up every day, you get up early, you chant Hare Krishna, you do your seva, you associate with devotees, you study Prabhupada's books. So what's so hard about that? That's it, class over. Krishna consciousness in a nutshell. Woof. But actually, if we say, okay, who struggles with that? Okay? We struggle with that. It's simple, it's really easy, but we struggle with it. So let's think a little bit about why we struggle with that. Does anybody want to offer any suggestions? Why do we struggle? What causes us to struggle with that very basic, very simple process?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
I think
Krishna.
our past conditioning.
Thank you, Pata. Yes, our past conditioning. Yep, I'm going to hold that one there, and we're going to go a little bit into more detail on that one. Does anybody else want to offer?
So hard to change the past habits, Prabhuji.
Hard to change past habits. If we've got past conditioning, we've got past habits, they're kind of the same thing right there. They're intertwined. Anything else?
Our priorities, Prabhuji.
Sorry, I can't hear.
Our priority, we don't give like priority to our devotional service first thing. We just
Yes,
give
sir.
priorities to the.
Yes, our priorities and our time. Yes, we may be prioritizing our needs to work, our needs to look after our family, our children, so many things, before we have time to practice Krishna consciousness. Let me really practice Krishna consciousness when I'm retired. Then it'll be easy. True, we have many priorities. So I think we can all agree that our conditioning is what really holds us back. And so we externally, we are dressing like devotees. We're wearing tilak, we are wearing devotional clothes, we are performing sadhana bhakti. We're offering incense and flowers to the deity. We are chanting Krishna's names. We're associating with devotees. But how much has our internal reality become Krishna consciousness? So we have two identities. We have our external identity, we have our internal identity. And our internal identity is largely defined by how we talk to ourselves. We probably find that we associate with ourselves more than anybody else. Is that true? Yeah. And so what is the quality of that association? You don't have to answer that question. We're just thinking about that question. What is the quality of the association that I have with myself? What we want is an internal dialogue that always thinks of Krishna and always worships Krishna and recognizes Krishna as our best friend and our protector. We want an internal dialogue that is positive and real in the sense that it's coming from me, the soul. What most of us experience is that our internal dialogue is coming from a false sense of self, and that is coming from our past conditioning. For example, somebody may have had a parent who themselves were not Krishna conscious, or themselves were not strong. or had certain conditionings. And that parent may have told you that you're not good enough, or you can't do this. Or a teacher, someone may have a teacher at school who told you you're stupid or you can't do this. Or so many other things that we've experienced in our past that we've taken to be real about ourselves. And those things are not actually real. So there's a beautiful verse in the Bhagavad Gita. I'm sure you know this verse. It's 6:6. For one who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will be the greatest enemy. So we understand that by chanting Hare Krishna, all of our false identities will be gradually stripped away. A little bit like layers in an onion, right? We have all these false selves, false conceptions of ourselves. And by chanting Hare Krishna, then we'll gradually become purified. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita also, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pratipurvakam. To those who serve me with love, I give them the understanding by which they can come to me. But most of us are not able to allow the holy name to penetrate our hearts and to penetrate our minds. And why is that? Because we have all of these other blockages and filters going on. And so my understanding is that our Krishna consciousness has to be an active process. We have to be involved with the process of cleaning. We have to be involved with the process of pulling the weeds. And an expert gardener, when he goes in the garden and all the shoots are coming out, he knows which ones are weeds and which ones are real. Somebody else goes in, they're like, which one's a weed? And they pull out all the good flowers. Have you ever had that before in your garden? It's really annoying for those of you who like gardening. So we need to be able to recognize the weeds from the flowers. And chanting Hare Krishna is to gives us that clarity. Most of us actually don't want to look inside. Opening the dark closet of the heart and of the mind. What's in there? Okay, let's close that back up for another day. Too painful, not going there. Don't want to deal with that one today. But in order to go deep in our Krishna consciousness, we actually have to open the closet and look inside. See, what is it? What is my conditioning that's holding me back so much? Many people nowadays will have a mentor. I'm not just talking about devotees now, I'm talking about people who work on personal development or who want to be the top of their game or they want to be the best in what they're doing. And they'll have a mentor or a coach that will help them to recognize what are the things that are holding you back. For example, somebody who has a low self-esteem, a low sense of self, may think, I'm not worthy of Krishna's love. I'm not worthy of being loved by anyone, let alone Krishna. And is this real? Is that true? Is it true that none of us are worthy of being loved by Krishna? We're all worthy of being loved by Krishna. Now, we shouldn't confuse low self-esteem with true humility. True and genuine humility is a very advanced stage of Krishna consciousness. So sometimes we may confuse that and say, well, I'm a rascal. How can Krishna love me? I'm a fool number one. Because I'm meant to say that to be Krishna conscious. But that may just be my low self-esteem, not my genuine, heartfelt humility, which will develop later on. So when our negative internal thoughts are stopped and transformed into positive ones, then our minds can more easily flow towards Krishna. So what I'm saying here in a nutshell is that we have to become aware of our minds thinking and our minds talking. And if there's something negative in there, we have to be willing to go in and pull it out. But the way to pull it out is to transform it. So this is transforming our internal identity into a positive one that is conducive for our Krishna consciousness. So that I'm identifying myself as a spirit soul and as a devotee of Krishna, not just philosophically, but actually in the core of my being. I was listening to a class by Srila Prabhupada yesterday, and he said, if somebody's associating with President Nixon, he was talking about President Nixon at that time, if somebody's associating with the president, how proud and protected he will feel. And he said, so how should we feel to be associating with Krishna? Krishna can make so many President Nixons. We should feel completely protected and completely safe. So the practices of Krishna consciousness, if we're practicing it, gradually transforms our internal identity. Sadhana bhakti, the external practice, turns into a change of what we think, what we see, what we hear. And this then becomes our internal reality, but it's a gradual process. I'm going to do a little exercise here. I want everyone to close your eyes for a second. We're going to do a little meditation here. And I want you to imagine that you're looking at the timeline of your life. So I want you to go a little bit above yourself and look down and imagine you're looking at the timeline of your life from where you are now, all the way back to when you were a child. And I want you to think of, can you see in that timeline 3, maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 things that have been really significant in your life and have influenced you to be the person you are now? Okay, you don't have to share that, but does anybody like to share? Was there something that you came up with that's been really significant in your life that has shaped the person that you are today? It's okay, you don't have to share, but put your hands up if one of those things that influenced the person you are today was negative. Okay. It's quite likely. We all have positive events in our lives, like meeting a devotee for the first time, or coming to the temple. There's so many things in our lives as devotees that are positive, but all of us will have things that happened in our past that we believe have made us the person we are today. And in many of those cases, those difficulties have probably made you stronger. They've probably made you a better person. Because how can you have compassion for others if you've never suffered? How can you have courage if you've never had to express courage? So part of our development in Krishna consciousness is also healing the past. Sometimes we hear that you cannot fix the past because the past is the past and you have to leave it there. But unfortunately, many things from the past are influencing us today. It's still there. It's still in our internal reality. We're holding on to it. It's our conditioning. And that may manifest in negative self-talk. But we begin to seriously change our identity in Krishna consciousness when we change what we tell ourselves. Because as we said earlier, we associate with ourselves most of the time. And how horrible would it be to live with somebody that's always getting on your case, that's always putting you down? How many of us have things in our minds that are negative about ourselves? Probably 100%, right? Yes. So we want to eliminate those negative influences. And in order to do that, we need good association. We need to feed the soul. We need to associate with devotees. And one of those associations with devotees is to reveal one's mind in confidence. So revealing our mind in confidence to devotees, to a mentor, somebody who can help us grow in those areas of our lives. I was listening to another class by Prabhupada the other day, and he was talking about feeding the soul. And he was given the example of we feed the body to get strong, but we also need to feed the soul to get strong. And the more we feed the soul, the more we identify as the soul. The more we feed our internal identity as Krishna's devotee, the more that will become our reality. Does anybody have any questions before we move on? Or any thoughts, any points, anything that's come up, realizations, thoughts? Is it a valuable conversation? Is it something that stimulates thoughts that are important for us in our development? I'm waiting to hear back from some of you, so come on. This is interactive class today.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah,
Prabhu.
Sanjeev Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. I was thinking about the deep-rooted bad habits. In spite of following Krishna consciousness, some of the habits that you have, or that, as you asked, that which events influenced your life, and maybe your bad decisions in past in your life that made that habit, and it's very you're struggling with to come over it. So yeah, so I'm just thinking about that. That is, as you said, that okay, we're following Krishna consciousness, but that's sort of feeling that hindrance in that path. So do you have any more explanation about those sort of?
Sure, I do. I was learning something recently. I'm actually I'm currently retraining myself to be a life coach, and something I was listening to the other day was talking about the internal language that we use around habits. And I've experienced this myself. We may have a bad habit, and our internal language around that habit might be, I can't stop this. I can't overcome this. So look carefully, what's your relationship with that habit? Are we feeling disempowered by this bad habit? And if so, how can I take control? Because when I'm in control, then I feel empowered. If the habit's in control, I feel disempowered. And let's say, for example, that the habit is, let's take a simple one. overeating. And okay, what's my relationship to overeating? Maybe it's because of an inner insecurity, and I feel like I need to fulfill a need. There's a need there for me to fulfill in order to be satisfied. So let's identify first, what's the reason for the habit? And what am I telling myself about that habit? And then how can I take control? For example, one thing might be that you have an accountability buddy. An accountability buddy would be someone, a friend, a devotee, someone you trust, maybe a mentor. And you say, look, I've got this bad habit I need to overcome. I want you to be my accountability buddy. Every time I go into this bad habit, I want to connect with you. Okay? And so you know you've got someone there to back you up, to support you to progress. You might then set up something else that, let's say I'm overeating and I've got no control of it. It's happening 3 times a week. 3, 4 times a week. It just happens when it happens. When I'm feeling down, when I'm feeling negative, it just happens. I can't control it. I'm chanting Hare Krishna, I'm praying to Krishna. It's still not working. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set myself up a diary in my calendar. I'm going to make sure that if I do it this week, I'm going to aim for a week without doing it. So I'm in control then, okay? I've given myself a goal. And then when I've hit a week, I'm going to go for 2 weeks and then 3 weeks. And if I fall back again, I'm not going to go back beyond what I started. So suddenly you've gone from being out of control to being in control. So our ultimate goal is to love Krishna, to always think of Krishna, to be situated in our identity as a servant of Krishna. But in order to get to that goal, we have to have these little goals that keep us enthusiastic. Because I feel enthusiastic when I'm in control of my life. I feel enthusiastic when I know I'm making progress. If I feel like I'm out of control and my habits are controlling me and I'm not making progress, how do I feel? I feel negative, I feel depressed, I feel down. But by taking control, then I start to get that enthusiasm. And it might only be a little bit of progress, but I'm feeling enthusiastic because I know, hey, I'm in control again. And I know that I'm getting closer to Krishna with every step that I take. Does that help? We could go much deeper, but that's
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you very much. Just as you took the example of overeating, I'll take the example of eating sweets. And well, everybody likes sweet, maybe not everybody, but I like very much. And like if I stop myself, okay, I'm not going to eat sweets, and because it's giving me problems, and then you restrain yourself, and then one day temptation come and you eat it, but then your mind said, okay, you eaten now, let's go, then eat more. And as you said, that just go back to your goal, where you set, you restrained yourself for 2 weeks, and then you done it, and then you fall down again, and then you start again. So I think that's the good point that you explained, probably, that fall downs happens, but main thing is you start again and have control.
Yes, have control of your life, and look for accountability buddies. It's a really good thing to set up. You have someone, and I'm working on this, can you help me? It means revealing your mind in confidence, of course, and that's, it requires trust.
Yes, bro. Thank you.
Anything else? Anyone else wants to comment or share anything?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Suji.
Prabhuji, I want to ask a question to you. Like,
Sure.
as you said that you are a life coach, right, Prabhuji?
Yes.
So after being in Krishna consciousness, how this life coaching has been transformed in your life, Prabhuji? Because I have seen many people now becoming life coaches and doing their life coaching. But then I want to ask you that how Krishna consciousness has improved, because you are saying that you have learned many things after it, and you are learning many things by being in Krishna consciousness, which is influencing your life coaching program, right? So how this life coaching has been transformed you?
Yes, thank you for asking that question. I actually, I've only just started my journey to becoming a life coach. So I'm currently doing a 12-week course. And prior to that, I was a school principal for 12 years. But during my time as a school principal, after about 5 years, I went through a lot of stress in my life. I had young children, and I felt at one point, I'm going to have to give this up. I was feeling weakened by the levels of stress. And at that point, I found myself a life coach. And through that coaching, I was able to get myself back to a place of strength and confidence. And I was able to continue from a much better platform than I was before. So my personal experience has been that life coaching was very helpful. And I feel inspired to do that, to help others, not just in their personal development, but also to help people get closer to Krishna. So thank you for your question.
Thank you. So, Prabhuji, I have also seen that many people are becoming life coaching, are doing life coaching, but they are not following Krishna consciousness. So, what do you feel that they lack something, or they are doing what maybe other life coaches are?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think it kind of relates to today's class, because we're talking about the Bhagavad Gita being the ultimate goal. Krishna's giving us the ultimate goal. Manmana bhava madbhakto, always think of me, become my devotee. And he gives us that assurance. If you can do that, then surely you'll come to me.
Perhaps,
So there's the ultimate goal. Now, in order to get to that ultimate goal, part of what I'm encouraging you today is that we also need to work on our personal development.
Right.
Now, it is said that if you just chant Hare Krishna, everything will happen. But in order for the Maha Mantra to really do its work on us, we need to take away some of those filters. We need to take away some of those blockages. And we need to consciously work on developing ourselves. So we're working on those habits, our bad habits, we're working on our negative thoughts. We're working on becoming stronger, becoming more confident. And we're applying that as devotees. We're then applying that to our Krishna consciousness. So those people that are not Krishna conscious, they're still becoming better people. They're becoming more moral. They're becoming more confident. They're becoming more capable. But they're not finding Krishna. So there is something definitely missing. But as devotees, we need to simultaneously do both. I believe we have to be conscious in the process, and we have to apply that so that we can progress more quickly in our spiritual life.
But Prabhuji, are those people feeling that lack point that they are missing Krishna? This is the question.
Sorry, can you say that last bit again, Shorya?
But Prabhuji, what if that those people who are doing good things are like personal development is on its peak, but they are not? Is that they are really missing Krishna, or they are not? Like, is the
They are absolutely missing Krishna.
But do they feel right?
They may not feel that. They may feel some level of satisfaction in the mode of goodness. So coming to the mode of goodness is having a sense of control over your life. Having a sense of goodness is having development of moral qualities. Coming to the mode of goodness is learning to control your mind and your negative habits. But from the mode of goodness, we then have to transcend that into going into Krishna consciousness. If we really want to find happiness, there is some level of happiness in the mode of goodness. And so these people that are experiencing life coaching, they are experiencing higher levels of happiness than somebody who's not developing themselves. Somebody who's staying in the mode of ignorance and passion is obviously suffering. Coming to the mode of goodness brings some happiness, but we're looking for higher than that. We're looking for the highest happiness. The highest happiness is found in always thinking of Krishna. And that's where we want to get to. Now,
Right. So while coaching people, do you also quote that the highest possibility of happiness is Krishna consciousness?
as a life coach, I certainly would. I would gradually have to take people to that point. Now, we always, when we're teaching somebody, we have to always find out where the person's at and take them forwards from there.
Right.
As a teacher, I have to find out, first of all, where somebody is, and I have to take them along the next step of their journey and gradually take them towards understanding our real identity.
Right.
So,
Your aim is to make that person a little bit closer to Krishna, but the process would be sequential, right, Prabhuji?
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Prabhupada talks about, or the Bhagavad Gita as well, talks about the modes of nature. And the mode of goodness is the platform from which we can take to Krishna consciousness. But it's a fact that most of us, due to our past lives and due to this life, are not fully in the mode of goodness. My actions might be in the mode of goodness, but my mind might still be acting in the mode of passion or ignorance because it's still conditioned. So I'm going to move on a little bit and talk about how adversity also brings strength. So the first area we've covered today is developing strength in our Krishna consciousness by consciously developing ourselves and our mental habits. Now, adversity is a fact of life. We cannot avoid adversity. In fact, the whole Srimad Bhāgavatam is about devotees being put in situations of adversity. I was reading to my children the story of the Pandavas when they're escaping the fire in the house that was set by Duryodhana. And then they found themselves in the forest with nothing. And I was thinking about my situation. I'm feeling somewhat depressed. I'm in a hard situation here. But what about the Pandavas? They went through so much more. And what was it that made the Pandavas glorious? It was all those challenges that they went through. If the Pandavas had a really easy life, they were just the kings and they ruled over the citizens and nobody challenged them and they didn't have any problems, it wouldn't have been a glorious story. We often find that the most influential people in the world have been through difficulties in life. Like the people who actually make a difference in other people's lives, they're usually people themselves that have been through really hard times. And I'll just read a purport here. This is coming from the Srimad Bhāgavatam, and it's the story of Bali Maharaj. So Bali Maharaj was severely tested by Krishna. Krishna took away everything from him in 3 steps. And at the moment, we're seeing how people are having their jobs taken away, or people having their incomes taken away, maybe even their homes taken away, and it's a huge thing. Bali Maharaj lost everything. He worked hard to become the head honcho. He worked hard to defeat the demigods and take over all of the worlds. And when he finally achieved all that, Krishna comes along and goes, 3 steps, all gone, nothing left. So it was a really hard time for him. Prabhupada says in his purport, one could hardly even live under the conditions forced upon Bali Maharaj. This is further proof of the Lord's mercy towards his devotee. The Supreme Lord sometimes puts a devotee to severe tests that are almost unbearable. The Lord certainly appreciates the devotee's forbearance, and it is recorded for the future glorification of the devotee. So, when we are going through adversities in life, when we are going through difficulties, we can have confidence. We can have confidence that by going through this difficulty, I'm going to come out stronger at the other end. I'm going to come out more Krishna conscious. I'm going to come out of this a better person. I'm progressing. Imagine if our life was just so easy that there was no challenges in your life. Do you think you'd be satisfied? Jesus said it's easier for an elephant to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to go to the kingdom of God. And what he was meaning is that if someone is living such a comfortable life, then they have no desire to take shelter. I may be living a really easy life and it's great. I'm so happy, and every day I offer my obeisance to Krishna and I chant my rounds, but I'm lukewarm. My Krishna consciousness is lukewarm. I'm going through the motions, I'm just doing it. So one time there was a spiritual master and his disciple, this is a story, and the disciple had been following the spiritual master and serving him personally, but he was losing confidence because he said to the spiritual master, I'm not feeling the ecstasy of devotional service. I'm not feeling that I'm making much progress. And he kept complaining like this for a while. He was losing confidence. And one day, the spiritual master went with him to the river to bathe. And whilst in the river, the spiritual master grabbed his disciple by the hair and pushed him under the water. And he held him under the water. And while he was under the water, the disciple was thinking, I need air, I need air, I need air, I'm going to die. And almost on the point of death, he pulled him up and let him breathe some air. And then he said to him, when you want Krishna as much as you wanted that air, then you will achieve that ecstasy and that perfection. So it's in times of difficulty that actually we really call out and we really want to be close to Krishna. And that was why Kunti, of course, prayed, let the adversities come again and again. Of course, we may not want to pray like Queen Kunti. I certainly don't, especially when I'm in the midst of difficulties. And we're praying, let the let the good times come again and again. But still, we understand that those times of adversity are times of developing strength. I was recently going through a very difficult time as I was terminated from my job. And one night I was going to bed and I picked up the Bhagavad Gita and I opened the Bhagavad Gita, any page, and I said, Krishna, what lesson have you got for me today before I go to bed? And I opened it up and it was chapter 11. And the purport, Prabhupada said, Krishna has a plan for everyone. And you can be just an instrument in his plan. And I was like, wow, Krishna, that's so amazing. I went to bed feeling completely satisfied. So we'll stop there. I can see time is getting on. If anyone has any more questions or comments, please.
Hare Krsnananda Prabhu, thank you very much for your very nice class. I just had a bit of a comment to make. It's sort of framed as a question, but first of all, I'd like to thank you for the way you presented this topic, because, as you know, I studied psychology, and a lot of the things that you mentioned, for example, coping mechanisms or converting, your thoughts from negative to positive, is what's taught in psychology. But obviously what's missing is the element of Krishna consciousness, in which we realize Krishna's hand in everything, as you mentioned at the end as well. I just had a question, Prabhu, because I know that you're coming from that standpoint as well, that you're going to teach this concepts to other people. Do you think that there is a certain lack of understanding, not necessarily from devotees, but even those who are spiritually inclined? I would say devotees for the sake of my question, but do you think that there's some sort of lack of understanding of how one can cope with trials and tribulations in one's life by using these psychological concepts, but framing them in a way which you cultivate your devotional service in the same way. So that was my question, Prabhu. If you could, I'm sorry if it was a bit disoriented, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to try to understand your question first of all. So your question is there a lack of understanding amongst devotees in how to apply these kind of techniques to improve their Krishna consciousness? Does that answer your question? Yeah, that's the question. Okay, I think that's definitely true. Now we cannot generalize here, because I know a lot of devotees are very consciously practicing to develop their personal psychology and their well-being alongside their Krishna consciousness. But we can also see that for many devotees, we practice for many years. It may be 10 years, it may be 20 years, it may be 30 years, and we may be struggling with the same thing. For example, I may be struggling with my overeating habit for 20, 30 years and thinking, why am I not getting through this? Why am I still struggling? Does this mean I'm not making progress in my Krishna consciousness? And undoubtedly you are making progress, but you're still frustrated with this one habit or this one mental dialogue that you have about yourself. So having these tools, I think, is very powerful. I've been reading Bhakti Tirtha Swami's book, The Spiritual Warrior. Has anybody read that book? And there's one of his books, is book 3 in The Spiritual Warrior. It's called Making the Mind Your Friend. And he talks a lot about this in that book. So Bhakti Tirtha Swami was actually quite a forward thinker, and he did a lot of work around the importance of personal development for progressing in your Krishna consciousness. So if anyone feels inspired to read Bhakti Tirtha Swami's books, they are interesting and very, very valuable. Thank you, Joe. Any other questions?
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Sorry, someone wants to say something?
Oh, no, thank you. That's it.
Well, I'm pleased to hear that you're studying psychology.
Yeah, he applies psychology with us as well.
I'm sure.
And he forgets that I'm his father. Even I love psychology.
Psychologically analyzed you on that.
That's why. And I'm also analyzing him, as he analyzes me. Why did he say this way? Why not that? Okay. So thank you very much, Prabhuji, for your nice class and your nice realizations. I wanted to share my personal experience. When I left my job, like you, it was a choice. I left it, and my employers were very, actually, they were very upset, They didn't believe me, they didn't accept that I'm going to go. And after that, I had no plan. I said, I'm going to teach meditation. That's what I told them. But I wanted to go. But that was my age to start on my own. Ultimately, I tried that to corporates, but started to do something else, and I'm doing something else. But I can tell you one thing, even I did not know whether I should go left or I should go right. So, but that's the best thing that I ever did. So I'm sure you'll be very successful, both spiritually and materially. Because you've got a young family, so obviously a young family also needs material security, and prosperity with it. And there is no doubt about it. Being devotees, I've told this to other devotees as well, and they also not look back. I want to do something else. It happened something else, and I'm doing something else, And second point, sorry, this was one point I wanted to say to you. The second point about growing as devotees. When I became a so-called devotee, I knew about this for a very long time since I was a small child. But before I jumped into it, twice when I heard that chanting of the holy names are are the thing for the age of Kali, you know, Yuga Dharma. So twice I tried it in extreme situations. So I'm going to dedicate. I did not know. I was not chanting. I chanted, but twice those times. I must chant it for an hour or 2 hours intensely to come up with an answer. So there was an outcome was unimaginable, which was not thought about in both the times outcome came. I said, now I'm going to dedicate myself. So even in our preaching program, our Hare Krishna weekend program, our motto is to give Krishna a chance. And I encourage myself, I encourage everybody that all have got connection with Krishna. Read Prabhupada's books, have connection, you'll find the answers, you know. So I just thought while you were mentioning about doing a presentation, so I must make a point of mentioning this, you know.
Thank you.
When one personally challenges, one can find it, you know.
There's two factors going on there. There's our effort to improve, and there's Krishna's mercy, or the spiritual master's mercy. And that's what other people are lacking. So if you take 2 steps towards Krishna and he takes 1 step towards you, his steps are infinitely huger than ours. So it's a simultaneous process. We're making an effort because I want to be better every day. Why do I want to be better? Because I want to be a better instrument for Krishna. That somebody, if I'm a carpenter, for example, and I go into my tool shed and I want to use my tools and they're all blunt, and this one's broken, it's no good to me. But if my tools are all perfectly sharp and perfectly working, then I can use them. So it's the same for us with Krishna. If we are our best self, if I'm my best self, if I'm really functioning well, then Krishna can use me in different ways. So my motivation for improving myself is to please Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji, absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me here today, and thank you for listening.
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Sorry. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. As usual, you know, you always isolate the thoughts very nicely. And it was a wonderful class. And, you know, I just wanted to say that in today's world, there is so much need for this Krishna consciousness in any way to be spread. And there is such a need in the world that so many people are suffering because of mental health issues and everything. So I really hope that, you know, your skills as life coach will be helpful to many, many people.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I'm sure they will. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for a very nice class. And actually, it was really interactive and actually made me think, you know. And it's really good to actually, you know, you are actually going on the path of becoming life coach. And especially because you are a devotee, I think it's going to be very impactful. Because I was thinking over, and you did ask the question, actually, you know, to what are those defining moments in your life, you know, that change your life. So I was thinking on that point, and actually one of the most important points that happened in my life, that is actually coming to this Ambrish Prabhu's program, you know, when I was first invited. And since then, actually means introducing to this concept, you know, Hare Krishna, and Prabhupada's philosophy and all that, that actually changed, made our entire life, you know, upside down pretty much, because it was completely different. And we, as you said, the life coaching is very, very important. And one of the things that we received from this program, because Ambrish Prabhu is actually constantly mentoring us, and actually, you know, all the instructions, not just in the spiritual area, but actually in the material life as well, you know, is constantly guiding us, and how that can actually help our devotional service. And I find it very, very useful. And I think, yeah, it's really important that actually everyone should have some mentor, you know, who can actually guide them to the right path. And that will actually change, you know, their life in a positive way. But actually, yeah, it's really inspiring to actually see you, Prabhuji, and your realization actually, getting a strength from Bhagavad Gita is very, very important, because I've been through a couple of difficult times, and what I did at that point is I had opportunity to use this actually professional counselors, through the companies I work for. And initially I thought, oh, actually I learn everything in my program, I don't really need a counselors. But again, I thought, oh, actually I wanted to find out actually what these guys do. So I actually went to the different counseling programs and actually had a discussion with them. And what I realized is that actually what they talk, actually there is much more in the Bhagavad Gita. Actually, sometimes they cannot answer some of our questions properly. But actually the instruction that we get from Bhagavad Gita, and one of the things that I really adore about our program is that actually our His Holiness Mahavishnu Goswami Maharaj Transcendental Mellows, they actually act as a mentor, and they controlling your habits. We talked about we discussed about giving the bad habits, and I struggle a lot initially when I actually started chanting and all that. But every time in the morning when we do puja and I read the calendar that we got the transcendental mellows, it's like Maharaj actually hammering you with the instructions, and it's just like mentoring, actually, and I found it very useful. So certainly you get a lot of strength from this Bhagavad Gita, knowledge and philosophy. So thank you very much, Prabhuji, for sharing this, and definitely we will actually look forward to see you as a life coach, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much, and thank you for sharing. Actually, I've only been to this group about 3 times on this online forum, but I really appreciate what you have here. And Prabhu, you've certainly set a wonderful program for all these people, and you're making a huge difference for all of these devotees' lives. So
Srila Prabhupada are guiding us, and we are very happy that you'll take Srila Prabhupada's flag in this area, and take the message of Bhagavad Gita as explained by him, and change people's lives. We also have counseling as counselors in the program. I did mention that to you, because all these new people, when they are ready, they move into the counselor. So it helps both. Very nice. We would, all of us, heartily wish and pray that you find success, and which you will. There is no doubt about it. And this is the most important thing that will happen to you and your family. All positive only. All glories to you.
Thank you all for your wonderful Sangha today.
Thank you very much.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Okay.
I think someone else had a question. I'm not sure.
No?
I think
yes,
Prabhupada.
Sorry, a lot of people are saying.
Yeah.
Okay, if you have some questions, no problem. You can raise them.
Yeah, I just had a question. Thank you, Prabhuji, for a really nice class. It was very thought-provoking for me. You mentioned about internal dialogue being positive, and how your negative past experiences have actually impacted you to be the person that you are today. So I wanted to ask you, it's kind of an abstract question, but still, that how do you kind of I personally find that the past negative experiences that I've had, the feelings associated with it, while they definitely help me to not repeat those mistakes, but they also kind of lead to a kind of a vicious cycle of like low self-esteem, and kind of degrading yourself for everything and things like that. It has a positive as well as a negative impact on you. So how do we kind of strike that balance, that how to derive strength from those things and leave the negative feelings that are leading to a low self-esteem or whatever? So how to strike that balance?
Yeah. So your question is, how do you get the balance between drawing strength from those negative experiences and not allowing them to become part of your identity? Because the problem is that we identify with those things. We identify ourselves to be those things. And to the extent that we identify with that, it actually affects us. So the first stage, I understand, is becoming conscious of what is that thing that is holding me back? What is that thing that is preventing me from being fully myself? And then when I'm conscious of it, I bring it to the surface. Okay, now I know what it is. I'm separating my real identity, which is me, as the spirit soul, from this false identity. So it may still be there, but at that point, because you're conscious of it, you've separated yourself from it. So you've made progress. It's no longer controlling you. It's no longer pretending that it's you. And then eventually, as you work with that, maybe you work with somebody as a counselor or a mentor, you can eventually dissolve that and move on from it completely. But it's having that trust and faith in the process as well, that if I'm going through the process of Krishna consciousness, and if I'm consciously working on my faults or my things that are holding me back, I can move through them. This doesn't have to be me for the rest of my life.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you for that answer. Hare Krishna.
Krishna says, I give you the understanding by which you can come to me. Tesham satata yuktanam.
Okay, I think we can end our conversation here. Thank you very much.
I think Parth again was raising his hand. Parth Prabhu.
You want to say something, Parth?
Prabhu, if the time is up, then maybe I can just.
No, you are in. Please continue.
Prabhu, just a small question, and if you can answer it quickly. My question was, Prabhu, you mentioned like Kunti Maharani praying to Krishna about putting her in trouble so that she can be in remembrance of Krishna more, right? And so this has happened with me sometimes in the past also, like when we face some challenges or difficulties or reversals, there are two thought processes that you can go through. One is that I committed an aparad, or I committed something not in the recent past but somewhere, and that is the reaction that this is the reaction that I'm getting for it. So I better look back into the past and see where I've gone wrong, and try not to repeat those mistakes again. And one other thought process could be that, oh, this is Krishna putting me through difficulty because he wants me to be a better devotee. So I just need to get through this. So just staying put. So in one, you go and look back at your past, and one, you just stay put and stay strong, and you want to go out because you think Krishna is. So how do you basically evaluate this, that if that's this difficulty, because this can lead to us being complacent about our challenges and not looking back into the past and actually rectifying our mistakes. It could make us feel, oh, I'm advancing as a devotee and Krishna wants me, Krishna is giving me his attention, and that is why he is putting these challenges, rather than looking back into our own faults. How can we actually balance these out, or how can we actually analyze them properly? That was my question.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, Parth. So obviously it's important that we learn from our past and we understand the mistakes that we made and we don't repeat them. What can happen is we make a mistake in the past, and from that mistake, I carry a sense of guilt for what I've done. And actually that's a healthy thing to an extent. So I've done something wrong, I feel a sense of guilt, and then I lament, and I go through a process of grieving with Krishna. And in a healthy sense, I then move on and put that aside and keep going in my spiritual life. In an unhealthy sense, I keep that sense of guilt and I carry it with me, and I start to identify with that. So there's also another balance there as well, isn't there? There's the balance of, okay, it's important that I learn from my past, but it's also important that I learn from that and let it go and keep moving forwards, so that it doesn't become part of my identity.
Thank you, Prabhu.
But I have heard that there's a healthy guilt and there's unhealthy guilt. Healthy guilt is when we approach Krishna with their guilt, we lament for it and we deal with it. Okay. Unhealthy guilt is when we hold on for it for too long and it starts to eat away at us, and it's not serving us. It's no longer helping me to progress. All it's doing is holding me down and making me feel useless or bad or whatever it is. And that's something, again, that we may need someone to talk to. We may need help with those things. This is why that devotional aspect, that revealing our minds in confidence with devotees that we trust, is such an important part of the process. Because on our own, we get stuck. We get stuck in our own habits, right? And our own stuff. But having someone that we can really trust and really work through things can be very beneficial. Thank you for your question.
Okay, thank you very much, Krsnananda Prabhu. We've got our food for thought for many devotees, and I'm sure they'll be encouraged to read Srila Prabhupada's books and look for the right pointers, as you said. And we wish you all the success. Thank you very much for your time in your class.
Hare Krishna.
Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Jai. All glories to Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Now, we will move to the second class now, concepts of Bhagavad Gita. And Krishnadas, can you sing Jai Radha Madhava, please, as we do. Those who are following us on YouTube, there'll be a small break for about 30 seconds, and we'll be joining you back. Okay, Hare Krishna.